How's it going, folks? This is Mike here to do a little bit of an update on what I've been watching lately on home video. But I'd like to start off with giving you an update about my Pixar class, which I talked about in my previous video, taking a non-credit course in the all about the Pixar films. So we had the second class this week, and we saw Toy Story 2. Well, the previous week we had seen Part 1. And if possible, I think I liked the Part 2 better than Part 1. It was just wonderful. I mean, it was so much fun. It had all these little sad moments, and it just really was done well. And there were so many references to things that people in my generation, the baby boom generation, would remember, whereas little kids of today would have no idea what these things are unless grandma and grandpa are sitting there, answering questions about what is this, what is that supposed to mean. For example, early in the film, you saw the little boy Andy, the kid that owns all the toys. He was getting ready to go away to a cowboy camp and take Woody with him. And Andy was wearing a T-shirt that said Triple R, which of course is a reference to the old Spin and Marty cereal that was on the Mickey Mouse Club back in the mid 1950s. It started in 1955, went on to 1957, and that was the name of the ranch where all the boys went for the summer. So I mean, a little kid wouldn't know what that is, but I saw it right away, and it was really interesting. So many things that yeah, so many references that kids wouldn't necessarily know what a flash camera was. I mean, that's something that they would have to they're not used to. Anyway, I loved it. I'm looking forward to the next film, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 3, which we'll see next week. And after that, we have I think five more films. Yeah, I think it's an 8-week class, so five more, and I forgot what they are. But so that's the update for my Pixar class. And now, as far as what I've been watching on a home video, I've got 6 films I'd like to talk about. Try to go through very quickly. The first one is this documentary called Z Channel: A Magnificent Obsession. This is a documentary that came out in 2004, directed by Xan Cassavetes. That's Xan Cassavetes, who happens to be the daughter of John Cassavetes and Jenna Rollins. And this is a really interesting subject for a documentary. I first heard about this from one of my YouTube friends, a guy named Mark108. Here I'm just stuttering today. Mark108, who talked to me about this several months ago because he thought I might find it an interesting subject. And then it just completely slipped my mind, and he reminded me of it very recently. So I got online and I found a copy of it that I bought very quickly, and I'm very happy that I have this. It's all about a cable TV channel in California that ran from 1974 to 1989, when it was bought by another company and they changed the format, and then it disappeared after that. But it was a channel that existed before the advent of home video, before video cassettes, certainly before DVDs or blockbusters on every corner, where if people wanted to see a certain kind of film, they may have to really work hard to seek it out somewhere at a film festival or maybe some late night TV show or something like that. But in those days, people didn't have access to cult films and foreign films in the way we do now, basically at the touch of a button or something. So it was a wonderful thing for people to be able to see interesting and obscure films and films from other countries that weren't being shown anywhere else on television most of the time. And if you didn't get to see things during a short run at a theater, then you might miss them for years, sometimes forever. So the Z channel was very popular, and it also focuses not only on the people who started the channel and how it was received by the public, people who subscribed to it, but it also focuses on a man named Jerry Harvey, who became the program director in 1980, who was a very knowledgeable and enthusiastic lover of film, who became very, very influential with this channel. But he was also a very difficult and very, very sad and kind of very depressed person. And it focuses on it also talks about the fact that he, in 1980, let's see, was it 80? Yeah, 88, a year before the channel was in its demise, Jerry Harvey killed his wife, his second wife, and then he killed himself. Or as the people who talk about it in the documentary put it, he executed himself for what he had done to his wife. So it's basically on two levels. It's talking about Jerry Harvey, but it's also talking about this channel and how innovative it was. And it's fascinating. It has a lot of extra features, a lot of interviews. Some of the people who were involved in this, in talking about the channel and about their friendship or relationship with Jerry Harvey, people like Robert Altman, Quentin Tarantino, Jim Jarmusch, Paul Verhoeven, James Woods, Jacqueline Bisset, and Teresa Russell. So we get a lot of very interesting commentary from people all about this. And it also talks about how Jerry Harvey was instrumental in getting certain films that had been badly edited and had not done very well at the box office. Films like Heaven's Gate and Once Upon a Time in America, how because of his involvement and his concern and his enthusiasm, he was able to get those films which had been cut for commercial release and therefore not received very well at all. I mean, in the case of Heaven's Gate, it was received badly by just about everybody and lost a lot of money. When he was able to get the complete cuts of the film shown on his channel, all of a sudden people were looking at them in different light. And so he did some very good things for some of these directors who had had problems with their films being taken over by the studios and being edited and therefore ruined. So it's a very fascinating documentary for people who love film, for people who love unusual films and cult films. I think this is something you would really enjoy. So Z Channel, check it out. All right. Second up is a film called The Believer, which was released in, 2001. This is a film that stars Ryan Gosling. And he in the film, he plays a young Jewish man who has completely rejected his heritage and his religion and has become a skinhead, a Nazi, which seems so completely, I mean, the most incompatible thing you could possibly be if you were born as a Jew. But it doesn't, it's a fascinating portrayal and it's a very well done story. My only problem with it is it doesn't necessarily give a lot of explanation as to why this young man became so hateful towards his own people, his own race and his own religion. It shows him as a very young kid in his religion classes, arguing with the teacher. I guess the teacher was a rabbi, and arguing points about God and saying that he didn't believe in it and then running away from the class. But it doesn't, and then it just shows him as a young adult and being a Nazi who is determined to go out and start killing Jews. He's so filled with hate and so filled with self-hate that all he wants to do is just cause pain and suffering. And yet, during the course of the story, we also see him beginning to reconnect with his Judaism and with his history. For example, there's a scene where he and some of his other skinhead cohorts, none of whom know that he's Jewish, or as he would put it, an ex-Jew, they go into a synagogue to desecrate it and to vandalize it. And when they get to the place that contained the scrolls of the Torah, there's a cabinet, they pull the law, the Torah, out, and these guys are going to start, well, they want to urinate on it, they want to, tear it apart and all this sort of thing. And he just tells them to leave it alone. I mean, there's something about his heritage that is pulling him back in spite of himself. And it makes for a fascinating portrayal and a very fascinating film. So I would highly recommend this as well. The third film is a complete departure from the ones previous. This is a Disney film called Swiss Family Robinson from the year 1960, which I remember seeing when I was a kid. I don't remember now if we went to see it at the theater or if we saw it in the old Walt Disney program on TV, which would show excerpts from a lot of these films during the course of their season. But I do remember a lot of things about it, and it's very nice to see it again. This was directed by a guy named Ken Anakin, Annakin, a director I don't know much about. It starred John Mills, Dorothy McGuire, James MacArthur, Janet Monroe, Sesu Hayakawa, Tommy Kirk, and Kevin Corcoran. Now, of course, Tommy Kirk, Kevin Corcoran, and James MacArthur had been they made a lot of Walt Disney films. So it's interesting to see all these young kids. Well, the whole thing is about, it's a European family who is going to the New World and to start a new life, and they get shipwrecked on this tropical island, and it shows them trying to, hopefully someday they might be rescued by somebody, and take to the place where they're actually going to go, where they intended to go to start their new life. But as long as they're there, they try to make a life for themselves on this island by building this elaborate treehouse and learning how to, get food and relate to the animals that are living on the island and all this sort of thing. And it's just a beautiful story for families and especially for children because it shows all these three boys and also Janet Monroe, whom they meet later. Um, they all are interacting with these animals. I mean, riding on ostriches and doing all kinds of cool things. And then they get attacked by pirates, which is also kind of a cool, adventurous thing for kids. Sesu Hayakawa plays the chief pirate, and it's just very well done. Great entertainment for everybody, and lots of extra features. They have interviews with Tommy Kirk, James MacArthur, even John Mills, very late in his life, is interviewed here. And it's kind of sad to me. Oh, also, they interview Kevin Corcoran. It's sad to me to realize that the only cast member who was alive that was in this film is Tommy Kirk, who is now in his mid-70s. Everyone else has passed away. Kevin Corcoran just passed away, I think it was either earlier this year or very late last year. So we're losing all these people, but thank God we have these things on disc. I found this at a flea market. It was completely sealed with its original price tag on it of $15, and they were selling it for $1, and I'm very happy to get it. So, okay, Swiss Family Robinson. The next film is something I've seen before. I saw it on cable TV many, many years ago, but it's been a while, and I wanted to see it again, so I picked this up at a used shop. This is The Game, starring Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. Let's see, this was released in 1997, directed by David Fincher, and what can I say? It's just an amazing thrill ride of a film. It's all about this strange company. What is it called? What is the name of the company? I forgot already. Something about entertainment. Oh, I can't remember now. I have such a bad memory. I just watched this 2 nights ago. But anyway, Sean Penn gives his older brother, Michael Douglas, a gift of getting involved in this game where he doesn't really know what to expect. It's just something that's supposed to be kind of an adventure, that they do something within your life, and he has no idea what it's all about. But it turns out to be one incredibly dangerous situation after another. And I mean, it's very, very well done. Michael Douglas plays a guy who is very wealthy, very successful, and totally unhappy. He's divorced from his wife. He basically has no relationship with his brother, and he lives alone, and he's just completely cut off from life and happiness and everything that's real and meaningful. And going through this bizarre game brings him back to life, which I don't know if it would do that for me, but worked for him. So this is definitely worth seeing. Okay. Up next is a film by Michelangelo Antonioni, one of my favorite directors. This is called The Passenger. Released in 1975, it stars Jack Nicholson and Maria Schneider. Very, very strange film. Not surprisingly, coming from Antonioni, but it's about, okay, Jack Nicholson plays a journalist who is in a remote section of North Africa, someplace out in the desert. He's trying to get interviews and film footage of some people who were involved in a political movement, a rebellion. And he's not doing very well. And while he's there, he's staying at this hotel, and the guy who is another person who speaks English, another Englishman, as a matter of fact, is staying at the hotel. So they become kind of acquaintances, and they do a lot of drinking. He doesn't know a lot about this man, but they get along very well. The second man dies suddenly of a heart attack. Jack Nicholson, his character, he decides to take this man's place by switching passports, switching identities as much as he can, because nobody in this remote African village really knows who these people are. So he takes over the guy's life, takes over his name, and for whatever reason, it's not completely explained in the film that he's very unhappy with his life. It gives a little bit of background through flashbacks that he's not getting along with his wife. He doesn't seem to be happy with his work, but it's just kind of an existential mystery that this guy decides to go into another man's life without knowing what he's walking into. When he does find out who this man was and what he was involved with, he realizes he's gotten completely over his head. The man turns out to be someone who has, well, I'm not going to tell you, because maybe you might want to see this someday. It's very well done. Of course, being an Antonioni film, it has a lot of incredibly understated and very quiet moments, and a lot of fascinating long shots of photography with the photography. And it relates to another Antonioni film that I love very much called The Eclipse, which came out in 1962, where Antonioni focuses on architecture, usually the most modernistic architecture he can find, as I guess as some kind of, I'm not sure what it's trying to express really, but a lot of this takes place in the city of Barcelona, Spain, which when you think of Barcelona, at least when I think of it, I'm thinking of old Barcelona, where you would see beautiful old buildings and cathedrals and things that go back 1,000 years. That's what the tourists want to see to get the real feel of the country. But what you see in this film are, brand new buildings that are very bizarre and very strange. I don't really know. I don't know that much about Antonioni's philosophy of filmmaking to understand why he would do this, but it's just a fascinating feature of this movie. It's very well done, and Jack Nicholson does a great job. Maria Schneider, of course, she became very famous about the same time for the film Last Tango in Paris, opposite Marlon Brando. So she's a very, very good actress, very interesting actress. So, okay, The Passenger. And finally, this is a film that I bought at Big Lots probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's been sitting on my shelf. Paid $3 for it, and I thought, okay, I'll watch it someday. Finally got around to it. It's called The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Let's see now. This came out in 2005, directed by Scott Derrickson. It stars Laura Linney, Tom Wilkinson, Campbell Scott, Mary Beth Hurt, and a young actress named Jennifer Carpenter in the title role. Not as their exorcism, but as Emily. And I was surprised at what a good movie this really is. And I'm sorry I didn't watch it before. I'm sure I will watch this again and again. It's many different things at once. It's a courtroom drama, it's a horror film, and it's also a story about religious faith. Now, Emily Rose, based on a true story, I guess, and I don't know that much about the details of the true story. But Emily Rose is a young woman living in a very, very devout Catholic family who gets a scholarship to go away to college. And while she's in college, she starts having these bizarre experiences, and she's diagnosed as being let's see, oh my God, my memory is so bad. It seems like she's having seizures, so they give her medication for seizures, and but she thinks that it might be a spiritual problem, that demonic forces are trying to attack her and enter her body. So she contacts her parish priest. She drops out of college, goes home, and contacts her parish priest, played by Tom Wilkinson, and he gets permission to perform an exorcism because he is convinced that she is being attacked by demonic forces. So when she dies, unfortunately, it becomes a court case where Laura Linney is trying to defend this priest who has been accused of, I get negligent homicide, I guess it was, because he was trying to treat her without using doctors and medication, which is what most people would think that's what she would need. So it gets very involved with flashbacks of what was happening to Emily Rose. And it's fascinating to watch the scenes where she's being attacked by the demons, because this young actress is so talented. I don't know how in the world she could do this, but the demons were attacking her in such a way that it makes her body just contort in all kinds of bizarre ways, and her face. And it's just a brilliant portrayal. Laura Linney plays the lawyer who is someone who is an agnostic, so she doesn't know whether to believe the priest or not. She's open-minded to a point, but as the case goes on, and she too starts to be affected by what could only be forces of evil, she begins to lean more towards believing the priest in what he was trying to do for Emily Rose. It's a very interesting and very well done film. As I said, I was quite surprised, and it's interesting that in this day and age they would have a film that well, in my opinion, it showed the religious side with a lot of respect, a certain amount of I wouldn't say non-belief, but just kind of inquisitiveness. Like, is it really possible? Is it not possible? But without ridiculing it. And I thought that they handled everything very well. So highly recommended. And it's, I don't know. It's the films that are, or maybe the scenes that are done in such a way to make it horrific are done extremely well, but without without violence and without a lot of blood splattering on every corner of the screen. It was done in a very creative way. So, okay, those are my 6 films and my little updates. So, if you have any questions or comments, please have at it. Talk to you later.